remember um, in Delhi, if a student was, living in Delhi in some college and he cannot go back to his home during Diwali or any such function, uh, and Diwali is where in North India as well as South India, it brings together the entire country. People go back to their homes. There's all together a festive season. Everybody is joining with their families. It's an incredible time to be in India. Uh, but students who could not go back to their homes for some or the other reason, their parents would suggest not to go out, in marketplaces, or the parents would suggest कि आप इंडिपेंडेंस डे या रिपब्लिक डे के टाइम पर घर से बाहर ना निकलो या मार्केट वगैरह ऐसी ऐसी जगह ना जाओ जहां पर बहुत हसल बसल हो. Why was that the case? उसके पीछे एक जो मेजर कारण था, जो हर एक पेरेंट का एक वो फियर होता है, क्योंकि उस वक्त इंडिया के अंदर रेगुलरली बहुत बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट हो रहे थे. आर इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी सिचुएशन वाज नॉट गुड एट ऑल. I was perhaps I'd just gotten out of college when Prime Minister Narendra Modi began making scenes, began coming onto the scene on national scene. He had begun making the ripples. One could feel it in Delhi. I was a student at Delhi University, and you could there was this buzz going all around that Prime Minister. There's a Chief Minister from Gujarat who is perhaps going to be the next prime ministerial candidate for the Bharatiya Janata Party. And we were also witnessing, times and much turbulence in India, in the sense, in Delhi, there were back to back some movement which was going on, and none of them were unfounded. India was going through incredibly tough times. The challenges that the country was facing as we slowly came to 2014 was very poor internal security, very bad situation on the borders, conflicts going with Pakistan. India's position in the global order, we were not, on top of the world or anywhere. Our economy was not doing well. Our reputation as a nation, Indians as people were not treated very well across the world. The strength of our passport, the strength of our visas was not treated very well. The corruption was off the charts. Then of course, another thing is the generation that we were building, the next generation that India was building was a generation which was not dharmic. In fact, in some sense, in fact, our schools and colleges were in fact teach our students to in some way nudge them directly or indirectly, nudge them into being a little apologetic about the faith, the religion. अगर आप हिंदू धर्म के हैं तो शायद एक वो किसी तरह की वो एक कमी रह रही है, या क्या कुछ इस तरह का एक वो सबकॉन्शियस लेवल पर एक इंफीरियरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स सा बिल्ड हो रहा था. फॉरेन पॉलिसी पहले इंडिया वाज वेरी कन्वीनियंटली हाइफनेटेड विद पाकिस्तान. The American foreign policy would talk about India, Pakistan, not realizing that the two nations, on many from democracies to the way they operate, the way their institutions are, the way the two cultures are, उनके बीच में differences को और उनके responses को discount करते हुए, we were still hyphenated. But India's power was something else. We were, as Jaishankar Minister Saab says it very aptly, we were going through a Hanuman syndrome. We did not know our powers. It took Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership for us to gradually recognize our core strengths and then began working on it. And that is exactly what we are seeing today. Thank you very much for inviting me today. As the poster suggested, I'm going to speak about India in transition. The title of this talk is essentially taken from the subtitle of my forthcoming book, which is called The Modi Disruption, India in Transition. And I'm delivering this talk very much in January 2025, when we are, in the phase of Mahakumbh, where, stars have aligned and the best cosmic combinations are happening for us to, for all of us to see magic unfold. We're also looking at 1 year of Pran Pratishthan ceremony of Sri Ram Lalla. And we're also witnessing 10 years um, of Prime Minister Modi's governance. Now, there are a bunch of things. I mean, I would say not a bunch of things. There are reams and reams of literature that can be written on this topic of what has changed in India since Prime Minister Modi took office. And in fact, many people are doing some incredible work documenting it, and it's in the age that we live in, which is the digital age. I think many people are documenting it on social media platforms also through Twitter, Instagram, and so on and so forth. But what I want to essentially discuss is bring forth the change, the real change for the younger generation. I'd just gotten out, I'd gotten out of college when Prime Minister Narendra Modi began making scenes, began coming onto the scene on national scene. He had begun making, the ripples. One could feel it in Delhi. I was a student at Delhi University, and you could there was this buzz going all around that Prime Minister. There's a Chief Minister from Gujarat who is perhaps going to be the next prime ministerial candidate for the Bharatiya Janata Party. And we were also witnessing, times and much turbulence in India, in the sense, in Delhi, there were back to back some movement which was going on, and none of them were unfounded. India was going through incredibly tough times, no matter what we say, no matter how we want to paint history. But from 2006 or 5 onwards till until say 2014, India was facing much turbulence, but all of that was, uh, it had sort of become a norm for us regular Indians. In fact, I remember. Um, in Delhi, if a student was, living in Delhi in some college, and he cannot go back to his home during Diwali or any such function, uh, and Diwali is where in North India as well as South India, it brings together the entire country. People go back to their homes. There's all together a festive season. Everybody is joining with their families. It's an incredible time to be in India. Um, but students who could not go back to their homes for some or the other reason, their parents would suggest not to go out, in marketplaces, or the parents would suggest कि आप इंडिपेंडेंस डे या रिपब्लिक डे के टाइम पर घर से बाहर ना निकलो या मार्केट वगैरह ऐसी ऐसी जगह ना जाओ जहां पर बहुत हसल पसल हो. Why was that the case? उसके पीछे एक जो मेजर कारण था, जो हर एक पेरेंट का एक वो फियर होता है, क्योंकि उस वक्त इंडिया के अंदर रेगुलरली बहुत बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट हो रहे थे. आर इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी सिचुएशन वाज नॉट गुड एट ऑल. In that circumstance, what could you expect from a parent, जो अपने बच्चे के लिए, अपने बच्चे की जान के लिए सब कुछ लगाने को राजी होते हैं कि आप बाहर मत निकलो. And that's such a, if I think about it, it's such a, uh, it's a moving thing कि एक पेरेंट अपने ही देश के अंदर ये सिक्योर नहीं फील कर पा रहा कि उनका बच्चा अगर उनसे दूर है और घर से बाहर निकले तो पता नहीं कहाँ पर कोई बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट हो जाए, पता नहीं कहाँ कोई टेररिस्ट अटैक हो जाए, एंड एज अ कॉन्सिक्वेंस they might lose things that they value or the most in their life. That is the time that we were seeing in 2010. And so, in fact, अगर 6-7 की आप बात करते हैं, आई वुड टॉक अबाउट रेगुलर और छोटे मोटे जो हो रहे हो, आप सीक्वेंशली हर महीने के अंदर कोई ना कोई ऐसा ब्लास्ट हो रहा था विच वुड शेक द नेशन. एंड इतना नॉर्मलाइज हो रहा था कि पीपल एंड स्टार्टेड कंसिडरिंग कि ठीक है, दिस इज पार्ट ऑफ लाइफ, दिस इज अ वे ऑफ लाइफ, आप बस चलते रहोगे. एंड दिस वाज आल्सो इन मेनी वेज, उसको रोमांटिसाइज भी कर देते थे कि भाई, मुंबई इज बैक ऑन ट्रैक्स, और it is good to have that resilience, it is good to have that strength. But no, first, how could we, let such a shocking event or such shocking events unfold on the streets of our country? It just confuses me, it just shocks me to the core. So India was going through, really turbulent. And apart from this situation, of course, corruption, the entire anti-corruption movement, India against corruption, and then Baba Ramdev, then this gentleman, the former chief minister of Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, everybody was starting. It was actually Anna Hazare from Maharashtra who had championed the cause, and then it was in some way captured by Arvind Kejriwal and his ilk. And all of a sudden, you see that it's going to turn into a political force, and it was like everybody was trying to take Indian citizenry, Indian population, Indian voters for granted. So be it from Congress side and the opposition that was coming for the Congress or against the Congress, the opposition that was building up, which was saying that we are just a social-political social movement, was anybody who had some experience or some insight or had understood or seen politics would know that it is taking the shape of a political party, and that is exactly what happened in Delhi. So now, so in these 10 years, a lot has changed in the country, and I'm going to talk about where we are coming from, where we stand today. Uh, India in transition, the topic that I'm writing about, is actually also not going to be those stories which are so in general we talk a lot about Indian economy. In general, we talk about how digitization has helped. There are many good governance things that have initiatives that have come about in the last 10 years or so. But let me draw you back and take you back in time as to what's been Prime Minister Narendra Modi's journey. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi was born and brought up in Vadnagar. He comes from a low middle class family. It was a joint family. They used to live in 1 2 room setup. He studied in a local government school there. The games and so would be like वहाँ पे एक pond हुआ तालाब हुआ करता था जिसमें वो तैरा करते थे. um, fun sports also would mean कि गांव के बच्चे they would swim into the lake, and lake के बीच में एक मंदिर हुआ करता था, मंदिर के ऊपर झंडा लगाना. But nothing remarkable about the childhood, only that the childhood was able to show him or give him perspectives about how tough life may or may not be. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi, or Narendra Modi in his younger years, could very well uh, you know uh, could understand or see poverty from close quarters, see uh, the real struggles of common Indians who are living in rural hinterlands. And from there on, I think he started, those early leadership qualities started brewing up. But none of them could take really shape until he joined the RSS. So now Prime Minister was very much part of the RSS during his school years, but he was not very active in its organization building. That happened when he went on around 17, 18 years of age. He went on this, there's some sort of, he got inspired by the ideas of Swami Vivekananda. And Swami Vivekananda and legendary people who have shaped the discourse of this country, and you can start from Adi Shankaracharya to Swami Vivekananda and even to Narendra Modi for that matter. आप जानते हो that people who've done remarkable things in this country have actually spent a considerable time in their formative years traveling across the country, length and breadth of the country, to understand uh, the pulse of the nation. Now, this is an exercise that if I'm addressing young students here, take an opportunity to step out, see the country, travel through local. आप ट्रेन की एक जर्नी लीजिए, लोगों से जानिए, कल्चर समझिए, and only then will you get the real essence of the nation that you are building in, and perhaps putting in effort to build and really make a remarkable nation out of ourselves. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also did that. He traveled across the country, and little is known about it. But what we do know that he ended up going to different Matsav, which was in the Ramakrishna Mission के अलग-अलग मठों में भी हुए थे, because he wanted to join the Ramakrishna Mission. However, some rules and something here and there never really ensured. And what had happened was, as a consequence, he had to go back and do his graduation. So disappointed, he comes back to Gujarat, and Gujarat ke andar he got in touch with some people from the RSS. So I think वकील साहब is one person जिनके, so वो वहां से निकल के ना, from his village he also came to uh, Baroda or Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad is where he started meeting people from the RSS, and RSS के साथ धीरे धीरे काम करना start किया. It is in the RSS that he found a genuine family, a real family, and he found people he could in long term call mentors. Now उनके साथ सीख के he got into the organizational work of the RSS. Now what is RSS? राष्ट्रीय स्वयं सेवक संघ. ये मतलब आज के टाइम पे लगभग 100 साल पुरानी, 100 years हो चुके हैं इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को. एंड इट्स अ वेरी ग्राउंड ड्रिवन मूवमेंट to make a strong India, to make a strong nation, and it does not. It has people from quarters of Indian social and political and cultural and corporate life as well. हर भांत का व्यक्ति आरएसएस का हिस्सा बना हुआ है, परंतु और आरएसएस किसी को आरएसएस इज अ वॉलंटरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. पीपल हु आर वर्किंग इन द आरएसएस एज प्रचारक्स are ones who've dedicated their entire life. They have left their grast jeevan. They are not going to bother about the fancies, the world, the luxuries, or anything, the comforts of life. Their comfort is in nation building. They've dedicated themselves to this cause, and they're putting in their hearts and minds and efforts into that practice. 24/7, 365 days, no leaves, regardless. Now, Pradhan Mantri Narendra Modi, when he was young, he joined the RSS and he got to learn a lot from RSS. RSS ने अलग अलग समय पर हिंदू कॉज के लिए भी और धार्मिक कॉज के लिए भी और भारतीय कॉज के लिए भी हमेशा झंडा उठाते रहे हैं. तो चाहे वो कश्मीर का मुद्दा हो, चाहे वो नेशन के अंदर चाहे 370 का मुद्दा हो, टेम्पल्स का हो, अलग अलग मुद्दे उठते रहे हैं और लोगों को एकजुट करके रखना. एक वो कहते हैं ना कि एक माला के अलग अलग मोतियों को पिरो के रखा हुआ है संघ ने. और संघ ने ये काम ऊपर से नहीं किया. मतलब संघ वाज नॉट डूइंग इट बाय सिटिंग इन दिल्ली और द मेट्रोपॉलिटन centers of the country. Sangh was doing it by being out there in the villages, in the central and in the hinterlands of the country. So गांव देहात के अंदर भी और शहरों के अंदर, हमारे छोटे शहरों और कस्बों के अंदर भी आरएसएस से कुछ स्वयंसेवक हैं जो एक फोकस के साथ, जो फोकस नागपुर से एड्रेस हो रहा है, उस फोकस के साथ वो उस काम में लगे हुए हैं पूरी निष्ठा से. नाउ प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी also joined the RSS, and because he was driven by the ideals of Swami Vivekananda and because he found great mentors, the Prime Minister then began getting into learning through the organizational building and started thinking. Now this man was at a very young age. He was a thinker and he was a doer. And that's a combination, that's a reasonably threatening one if you want to see, if you see it in an enemy, and if you these are qualities that one should emulate in themselves also. The Prime Minister was really focused on uh, seeing, observing things, learning things, and after gaining a reasonable knowledge, he would put them to practice also. Now, an example which is commonly quoted is he was a young Swayam Sevak during the Morbi disaster in Gujarat. And he was not in Gujarat back in the day. He was, I think, when the disaster happened, when the Machu Dam broke, Narendra Modi ji was in Mumbai. एंड बम्बई से वो दिल्ली आए, दिल्ली से राजकोट से फिर वो पहुंचे मोरबी. और मोरबी में जाते ही जब तक वो पहुंचे तब तक उन्होंने कुछ ना कुछ व्यवस्था करनी शुरुआत कर दी थी. उस टाइम पर जमाना इंटरनेट का तो नहीं था. सो विद वट एवर नॉलेज ही कुड हैव, वट एवर, इनफैक्ट बम्बई में इफ आई एम राइट, ही वेंट टू किसी एक मैगजीन या डेली के फाउंडर के पास गए थे जिन्होंने सारा इंफॉर्मेशन उनको दिया था. नाउ on the strength of that information, he went to Delhi and then via Rajkot to Morbi. Now, वहां पहुंचने से पहले पहले उन्होंने बड़ी सारी और व्यवस्थाएं करनी शुरू कर दी थी. बट व्हाट यू सी, जो जिन जिन प्रधानमंत्री को आप आज देखते हो, वो प्रधानमंत्री इन्हीं एक्सपीरियंसेस से धीरे धीरे बढ़ते गए हैं. तो अगर 1970s के अंदर या लेट 70s के अंदर ये डिजास्टर होता है तो ही वॉज वेरी मच ऑन ग्राउंड ऑल्सो. मतलब कैसे डिजास्टर को मैनेज किया जाए, उसका जो पहला एक्सपीरियंस है प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी को तभी आ गया था जब उन्होंने संघ के कार्यकर्ताओं, संघ के स्वयंसेवकों के साथ वहां पर जमीन पर जाकर काम किया और वहां पर व्यवस्था थोड़ी सुसज्जित की. उसका आप एग्जाम्पल बाद में आप भुज में भी देखते हैं कि भुज के अर्थक्वेक के अंदर कैसे मैनेजमेंट हुआ, या कैसे डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट अथॉरिटी डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट को कैसे एक सॉलिड फिलिप मिला when Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji was Chief Minister Gujarat. Now something similar you see कि केदारनाथ जब डिजास्टर हुआ था, आई थिंक 2013 के अंदर, तो उसका फर्स्ट रिस्पॉन्स हाउ इज इट दैट कि गुजराती चीफ मिनिस्टर फ्लाइज डाउन क्विकली इनटू देहरादून टू टेक केयर ऑफ Indians and also Gujaratis who were stuck and who were traveling to Kedarnath. Now, all these things are what makes our Prime Minister special today, and it is these learnings over time that has given him, some remarkable experience. So, चाहे मैं RSS की बात करूं, in the 1980s, he moved from RSS to the BJP organization. और पार्टी के organization के अंदर he learned how to go about team building, how to understand organizational work, how to structure it, how to bring in fresh ideas to revolutionize the entire election strategy. In fact, what you see today, अगर 2024-25 के अंदर आप देखते हैं कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी चुनाव नहीं हार रही और कंसिस्टेंटली चुनाव के लिए पार्टी हमेशा रेडी रहती है, और चुनाव के लिए पार्टी मतलब पार्टी के रिजल्ट्स भी दिख रहे हैं, उसके पीछे एक मेजर कारण ये है कि जो पार्टी आप आज देख रहे हो और उस पार्टी की सक्सेस जिन फंडामेंटल्स पर आज के टाइम पे, आई एम नॉट डिस्काउंटिंग द वर्क ऑफ लेजेंड्स लाइक मुरली मनोहर जोशी जी, एल के आडवाणी जी, अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी, आई एम नॉट डिस्काउंटिंग दैट इन एनी सेंस, बट व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से इज कि पार्टी के अंदर आज के टाइम पर, इन 2025 के टाइम पर, जो पार्टी के सबसे बड़े लीडर्स हैं उनमें सबसे बड़े लीडर प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी, तो नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने पार्टी को इतना वेल ऑयल्ड और वेल स्ट्रक्चर्ड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बनाया है by learning and finding fresh strategies, finding fresh, or bringing organizational tweaks and ensuring कि organization ऐसे चले, because it's been his work for the last 40-50 years, no? तो इतने सारे समय के अंदर उन्होंने जो भी बातें सीखी है वो उन्होंने पार्टी के फंक्शनिंग के अंदर ऐड करवाते गए हैं, जिस नतीजे से आप जो पार्टी आज देखते हो, वो पार्टी इसी वजह से इतनी अच्छे, इतने वेल ऑयल्ड सिस्टम की तरह चल रही है, क्योंकि उसको बनाने वाले व्यक्ति प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी हैं और वो हेल्म पर बैठे हैं। तो this is how he shaped that's been his impact and effect on the party. Now, after RSS, he spent time within the BJP as a BJP organizational man, and he built the BJP. So BJP Gujarat organization considered it that it was his lab कि उन्होंने बड़े fresh ideas डिस्कस करे, यात्राज का जो आइडिया है वो लेकर आए, पोस्टरिंग कैसी करनी चाहिए। इनफैक्ट देयर आर मेनी डिजिटल आर्काइव्स व्हिच टेल कि वो छोटी छोटी चीजें ऑब्जर्व करते थे, एंड दैट ऑब्जर्वेशन स्किल वाज वेरी रिमार्केबल even in his younger years. So there are many lessons that younger people can learn from Prime Minister Narendra Modi and how his journey has been. Of course, if I'm to list a few, I think to start with, that you have to be very hardworking, put in your hearts and mind into the work that you're doing it, and do not think about the results, because your what you can control is your hard work and your input. So Prime Minister, I think he puts a lot of effort in doing that, and you do consistently, you persistent with your hard work. You have to do it consistently. Then you have to be a continuous learner. प्राइम मिनिस्टर आज भी, अगर आप कई जो लोग हैं जो उनके साथ काम करते हैं उनसे अगर आप चर्चा में आए, तो वो बताएंगे कि कैसे प्रधानमंत्री कोई भी चीज, कोई भी मुद्दा होता है, उसके बारे में कोई भी नई चीज आती है, वो उसके बारे में जानने समझने की बड़ी एक्टिवली प्रयास करते हैं, बड़ा एक्टिवली कोशिश करते हैं। व्हाट आई मीन बाय दैट इज के प्राइम मिनिस्टर वुड कुछ छोटा सा भी आइडिया हो, लेट्स से इवन आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस फॉर दैट मैटर, he takes great pains in understanding from the basics ke what is artificial intelligence and how it can change the world in the near future, and so on and so forth, or be it space technology, or be it rocket science, and so on and so on. So that aspect in learning continuously is a very important thing that people will, or young people should imbibe in themselves very early. Then keep your friends close, because the work that you do, the life that you're building will have its own challenges and hiccups. But keep your friends or family, people who are your real core group, keep them close to yourself, and they will also grow with you. Help them grow with you. That is commonly said about the Prime Minister नरेंद्र मोदी जी आज भी लगभग 50 से ज्यादा कॉल्स, विच इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम excuse me, his office work or his administrative work, he still gets into conversation with people from across the country that he has met through his journey in life, and उनसे बातें कर करके जायजा लेते हैं, कुछ information collect करते रहते हैं. So he is learning continuously as to what the change is happening in the country. He is not detached from the ground. We don't have a prime minister जो सिर्फ दिल्ली की लॉबीज के अंदर बैठ कर या दिल्ली के अंदर उनके दफ्तर के अंदर जो लोग आते हैं उन्हीं से चर्चाएं करते हैं. He is continuously reaching out. So for instance, कभी भी प्रधानमंत्री जी की कोई वो होती है, रैली होती है, तो यू नो दैट इट इज स्ट्रक्चर्ड कि जब वो फ्लाइट में चढ़ेंगे तब कौन उनसे मिलेंगे, जब फ्लाइट में उतरेंगे तब कौन लोग उनसे मिलेंगे, फिर उसके बाद जब वो गाड़ी में जाएंगे या गाड़ी से जहां पर कोई पब्लिक रैली है वहां पर गाड़ी में उनके साथ कौन होगा, पब्लिक रैली के बाहर जब गाड़ी से उतरेंगे तब कौन व्यक्ति उनसे मुलाकात करेंगे, मंच पे कौन लोग उनसे होंगे, सामने कौन होगा. एंड ही this is his observation quality ना, that when the prime minister sees के कोई young बच्चा उनकी एक पेंटिंग बना के लाया है और उनको प्रेजेंट करना चाहता है, तो he would call, for that painting, or all those things will happen. So this is prime minister's individual and special effort and observation, and is always keen to listen and keen to imbibe some fresh information. Then you also, and this is also for the young audience, you got to know, and you have to, on priority, know yourself, why you want to do it. Get clear with your whys. Why do you want to do a certain thing? Your motivation and your the motivation to do a certain thing should be clear in your head, and that I think Prime Minister Narendra Modi really shows. And once you're clear of that, you can make a clear aim, and then you can go about the hard work and doing it consistently and building it on and forward. Now, that being said, Prime Minister BJP में थे in the 1990s. He was building the Gujarat state cadre, an organization जो उनका बहुत massive impact था. तो जो आपने from municipal elections to state elections, आपको बीजेपी के अंदर जो changes आ रहे थे, that Prime Minister Narendra Modi can be credited for all those changes as well. Then um, after for and politics is politics. वो politics होते होते कुछ इस तरह की situation बन गई that he had to step out of Gujarat, and he was elevated as secretary in charge of Haryana, Delhi, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh. So he was moved out of Gujarat, and वो भी उनके लिए एक अच्छा learning experience था, because during this time he not only traveled and took care of or tried understanding Haryana, Punjab, or Delhi for that matter, और हिमाचल फॉर दैट मैटर, वो हरियाणा का जो एक्सपीरियंस था उसी के नतीजे तो हरियाणा के अंदर 2014 के अंदर भाजपा सरकार आई है, और जो वो पटकथा थी, जो वो फाउंडेशन थी, वो उसी दौर में लिखी जानी स्टार्ट कर दी. एंड Prime Minister also, not just India, he began traveling across the world during this time. So when he was in Delhi as in the national body, उनको दुनिया घूमने का मौका मिला और बहुत सारी चीजें सीखने का, समझने का मौका मिला. नाउ उसका नतीजा यही निकला कि उनकी लर्निंग्स और बढ़ी, और ऑब्जर्वेशन स्किल को और होन किया. अलग अलग दुनिया से जो भी कोई सक्सेसफुल स्ट्रैटेजीज हैं, कोई मॉडल्स हैं, कोई ट्रिक्स हैं, कोई तरीके हैं कि जिस तरह से हम कोई अपना काम इम्प्रूव कर सके, या कोई ऐसा इंडिया के अंदर आइडिया इम्प्लीमेंट किया जा सके, उस चीजों के बारे में उन्होंने विचार करना शुरू किया, और वो ऑब्जर्वेशन लेकर वो इंडिया भी आना स्टार्ट हुआ. और इसी दौर के अंदर, बिकॉज 1990s के अंदर राम रथ यात्रा हुई थी, तो देश के अंदर माहौल बनने लगा था भारतीय जनता पार्टी के फेवर में. आप समझिए कि कांग्रेस पार्टी इस देश में कॉन्टिन्यूसली राज कर रही थी. अब इफ यू स्किप दैट ब्रीफ फेज ऑफ जनता पार्टी अंटिल द 1990s, जब जनता दल गवर्नमेंट आई या नेशनल फ्रंट गवर्नमेंट, वो इस देश के वोटर्स की साइकोलॉजी में एंड एक्शन में भी, कि हाउ टू take care of how elections happen, how politics of this country take shape, and so on and so forth. कांग्रेस पार्टी और गांधी नेहरू परिवार का एक बहुत सॉलिड ग्रिप था. अब उस ग्रिप से निकलवाना या निकलना बहुत बड़ा टास्क रहा था, एंड उसके कई अटेम्प्ट्स किए गए थे, बट नन ऑफ दोज अटेम्प्ट्स वर रियली सक्सेसफुल अंटिल प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरेंद्र मोदी केम ऑन टू द नेशनल सीन. सो उसका पहला सक्सेसफुल, रीजनेबल सक्सेसफुल इवेंट प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरेंद्र मोदी के मेंटोर ही हैं, अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी, इज द वन हु टुक हिम बैक from General Secretary Organization of the Bharatiya Janata Party to गुजरात एज द चीफ मिनिस्टर. तो जब गुजरात में वो मुख्यमंत्री बने, उस टाइम पे नेशनल सीन में प्रधानमंत्री अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी देश का नेतृत्व कर रहे थे. एंड प्रधानमंत्री जी ने, अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी ने इस देश को एक नई दिशा दी, इन द सेंस के यू सी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हैपनिंग ड्यूरिंग दोज डेज. मेट्रो की के बारे में काम करना, या गवर्नेंस के अंदर कुछ चेंजेस लेकर आना जो पहले कभी भी नहीं हुआ करता. दैट इज व्हाट Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee was able to achieve. However, the India Shining campaign failed, and फिर 10 साल तक यूपीए सरकार का राज रहा. Now UPA did some good things. There is under Dr. Manmohan Singh, civil nuclear deal हुई. Then of course we know काफी सारे आरटीआई आया, बट इन सब की पटकथाएं भी पहले लिखी जा रही थी. सो वी कैन नॉट डिस्काउंट के अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी ने उस दौर के अंदर इन सारी चीजों पे काम नहीं किया था. रिगार्डलेस, इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट बी, लाइक आई वाज टेलिंग एट द बिगिनिंग ऑफ आवर कॉन्वर्सेशन, that the challenges that the country was facing as we slowly came to 2014 was Very poor internal security, very bad situation on the borders, conflicts going with Pakistan. Uh, India's position in the global order, we were not, on top of the world or anywhere. Our economy was not doing well. Our reputation as a nation, Indians as people were not treated very well across the world. The strength of our passport, the strength of our visas was not treated very well. The corruption was the off the charts. Then of course another thing is the generation that we were building, the next generation that India was building was a generation which was not dharmic. In fact, in some sense, in fact, our schools and colleges were in fact teach our students to in some way nudge them directly or indirectly nudge them into being a little apologetic about the faith, the religion. अगर आप हिंदू धर्म के हैं तो शायद एक वो किसी तरह की वो एक कमी रह रही है या क्या कुछ इस तरह के एक वो सबकॉन्शियस लेवल पर एक इंफीरियोरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स सा बिल्ड हो रहा था. नाउ ऑल दोज थिंग्स वर मेकिंग एन इम्पैक्ट एंड उस टाइम पर बिकॉज करप्शन के अगेंस्ट मूवमेंट होना स्टार्ट हुआ. इनफैक्ट पूरे देश के अंदर एक माहौल बनना स्टार्ट हो गया था कि अब वो होता है ना कि बस हो गई. इनफैक्ट वो लाइन है ना, हो गई है पीड़ पर्वत सी अब पिघलनी चाहिए, इस हिमालय से कोई गंगा निकलनी चाहिए. तो आई थिंक वही उसी तरह का एक माहौल इस देश के अंदर बनना शुरू हो गया था जिसके अंदर the country was looking forward to a fresh change. The country was looking forward to a change. And that change came when Gujarat CM Narendra Modi, who had already been making a name for himself since 2001 or so, of being a remarkable chief minister. And when Narendra Modi was chief minister, he brought in many changes, jo, which could be qualified into good governance changes. तो गुड गवर्नेंस के अंदर चाहे वो डिजिटल गवर्नेंस हो या डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट हो, इस तरह के बहुत सारे चेंजेस सीएम नरेंद्र मोदी गुजरात में लेकर आए. एंड वो इतना अच्छा हो रहा था कि देश के अंदर, एंड इफ यू कंसिस्टेंटली पुटिंग इन द वर्क ना, excuse me, people start talking about it, and that is what was happening naturally, and not just in in Gujarat, across India and the world. People were recognizing that there is a chief minister of Gujarat who is doing some remarkable work, and he could very well be the next prime ministerial candidate from the BJP. But BJP itself is like it's a family, and there are people who would want ke, and it's also politics, na. People would want ke kiska number आगे पड़ेगा, किसका नहीं पड़ेगा, and so on and so forth. But long story short, as a consequence, we saw the Prime Minister Narendra Modi became the prime ministerial candidate of the BJP, and पूरा का पूरा जो campaign था. In fact, 2014, अगर आप देखें 2013-14 is a good learning experience for political strategists or budding political campaigns or consultants also, क्योंकि उससे पहले देश के अंदर कभी भी इतनी स्ट्रक्चर्ड तरीके से रैलीज, इससे इतने ज्यादा स्ट्रक्चर्ड तरीके से इलेक्शन से रिलेटेड इलेक्शन प्लानिंग नहीं हुआ करती थी. एंड दैट्स अ सिग्निफिकेंट चेंज दैट प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरेंद्र मोदी ब्रॉट इन, क्योंकि उससे पहले नहीं हुआ करता था इस तरह की चीजें. नाउ दैट बीइंग सेड, व्हाट हैज हैपेंड सिंस देन इज कि सिंस एक तो प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरेंद्र मोदी जब ऑफिस में आए थे तब वो बहुत सारे बहुत सारे डायनेमिक आइडियाज के साथ आए थे. But Delhi is a different ball game. The Latvian circle would not let you operate until unless you pander onto the powers which were already sitting there. Now, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, due to Godhra and the cases, so on and so forth, he was being hounded by the Latvian circle for the longest time. So he had been crippled by the Latvian circle for a really long time. And when he came into office, uh, not as part of vengeance, but he had already known their colors, how they operate, what do they think of, what are their strategies, because he had taken them on in some way as an enemy for the longest time. So Prime Minister knew all of that. So when he came onto scene, he wanted to, he knew the structure that was in shape. He knew that the cabal which was controlling all of it, and he would not care about it. And that you see in his actions. Now, let me for the paucity of time, let me tell you a couple of things that have changed since 2014. And this is how I've structured my book as well. Okay, I'm not going to talk about the manufacturing numbers. I'm not talking about the economic numbers. I'm not talking about the metrics and digitization because many people already have, and that is very, very easily available on Wikipedia. But I'm going to talk about how foreign policy has changed. Now, what has happened? I'll give you a brief insight into it. Foreign policy, pehle India was very conveniently hyphenated with Pakistan. The American foreign policy would talk about India, Pakistan, not realizing that the two nations, on many from democracies to the way they operate, the way their institutions are, um, the way the two cultures are, uh, उनके बीच में differences को और उनके responses को discount करते हुए we were still hyphenated. But India's power was something else. We were, as Jaishankar Minister Saab says it very aptly, we were going through that Hanuman syndrome. We did not know our powers. It took Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership for us to gradually recognize our core strengths and then began working on it. And that is exactly what we're seeing today. So in 2024, if our young people are unicorn founders, it is because of the same thing. Or in 2024 25 we are seeing an assertive population, we are seeing a growing economy. It's because of that, those strengths. Is if Indians are aiming to become the best of the best in global sports, it's because of that confidence. If our ambitions are now global, it is because Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given that confidence to our young population that we can dream and be big. Now, uh, that's a change that even foreign policy saw. That in foreign policy we began becoming more assertive. We knew where we were, we knew where we are, we knew our position in the world, and we wanted perhaps more. And if not more, we wanted to we treated the world like a family, and we wanted a peaceful coexistence. And if that takes us to take a certain side, we take that certain side with our own priorities. Then, of course, a remarkable change that you see and witness on evacuations. I mean, 2014 से पहले इस देश के अंदर जो डायस्पोरा था या पीपल इंडियंस हु वर caught in a crisis abroad were almost, या तो गवर्नमेंट बहुत लेट जागती थी और were almost caught on their own travels कि मतलब या तो सरकार से कुछ उम्मीद ही मत करो 2014 से पहले. तो सरकार 2014 के बाद ये होने लगा कि our Indian government was proactively supporting, helping, and standing by Indians across the world. So Indians living across the world became family. जो पहले नहीं था. पहले ये था कि NRIs would be like, and the full form of NRIs is non-resident Indians, and there are side remarks which have been passed on that they are not required in India. That was the situation of people who would go out of India. And even people would go out of India for economic reasons. Now they are also coming back to India, and Indians across the world are global ambassadors of our country. And that is a significant shift in that entire approach. And when one or any of them are caught in a crisis, the Indian government today responds proactively. And our global foreign policy has also become very humanitarian. If something happens, any crisis any country is facing, it is us, our government which responds very proactively in solving or helping that nation caught in crisis. We also are proactive in our diplomacy. We've also, Prime Minister Narendra Modi does he does this personal diplomacy where he has built a personal rapport with the leaders of countries across the world, and with on the strength of that personal diplomacy. So be shaking hand to giving a hug, to knowing personal things about different people and reaching out to them, and is part of that personal diplomacy that Prime Minister Narendra Modi brings onto table. And that has happened because naturally he's a hard worker. He is proactively working with a single agenda, single focus, and objective in mind of making India, the most, the best country in the world. Then, and in that pursuit, he's putting in all of his time and effort. And as a consequence, whatever may be required, his objective is clear. His objective is service of the nation. And since that is clear, he is, doing whatever is possible or whatever is, all the tools available at his hand. He's taking them forward. Now, In evacuations also, I think a prime example could be Operation Ganga. Operation Ganga was carried out to evacuate medical student Indians caught there. Around 24, 25,000 Indians were caught in Ukraine when Russia attacked Ukraine because Ukraine wanted to, excuse me, because Ukraine was taking a pro-Western stance, and because of the fear of expansion of NATO, the Russian government or Russia attacked Ukraine because for Russia, Ukraine is the red line. That's part of the Russian civilization for them, and they would not in any way accept the eastward expansion of NATO. And this has been clear for a long time from the Russian point of view. But here we have a situation where the pro-West stance was very clear, and Russia decided to attack Ukraine, and a large battle across the country began. There was bombing and so on and so forth. And many students, in fact, there were around 25 or 25,000 Indians who were living in Ukraine at that point of time. Um, many of these students could not be asked to vacate, all of a sudden because students have their exams going or students have their studies going. Nobody was anticipating that something could escalate to this level. So everybody was sort of taken by surprise. And I remember watching that interview of President Joe Biden, where President Joe Biden said that there's no way the Americans can evacuate any American out of Ukraine in a war-like situation. And here we have the Indian government, which brought about around 25,000 Indians. First, by land, they were transferred into neighboring countries, and from the neighboring countries, they were flown back to the country, back in India or Mumbai, back in India at some New Delhi or Mumbai, and so on and so forth. So, आप ये बात समझिए कि in this scenario, how was Prime Minister Narendra Modi able to achieve it is because of one, his proactive diplomacy, two, his ability to speak to both conflicting parties. He could speak with Russia, he could speak with Ukraine, he could speak with America, the French, and so on and so forth, to ensure that a safe passage for students was availed. In fact, Sumi is a prime example. Sumi रशिया यूक्रेन के ईस्टवर्ड साइड में है, और वहां पर हमारे कुछ 700-800 स्टूडेंट्स फंस गए थे। तो उन 700-800 स्टूडेंट्स को निकाला कैसे जाए, क्योंकि अंदर यूक्रेनियन थे और चारों तरफ से रशिया ने घेर रखा था। एंड रिमेंबर यार, दीज टू नेशंस आर ऑन वॉर, एंड वॉर के वक्त में ऐसा नहीं था कि सिर्फ गवर्नमेंट्स लड़ाई कर रही हैं। देयर आर आल्सो सम अदर एलिमेंट्स हु आर एंगेज्ड इन सम बैटल्स। देयर कुड बी लोकल मिलिशिया, देयर कुड बी any other armies and so on and so forth. So as a consequence, ऐसी सिचुएशन के अंदर आप कैसे अलग अलग पार्टीज को ये समझाओ कि स्टूडेंट्स हैं, इंडियन स्टूडेंट्स हैं, इनको बाहर निकालना जरूरी है। एंड आई रिमेंबर स्पीकिंग टू अ जेंटलमैन हु shared that story with me कि कैसे they were in a city outside of Sumi in Poltava, and they were waiting कि अभी रिस्पॉन्स मिलेगा, अभी शायद हमें सेफ पैसेज मिल जाए, but nobody was picking their calls, nobody was responding to those pleas. And then all of a sudden everything went, everything sort of got structured कि आपको एक सेफ पैसेज में मिल गया। रशिया ने भी सीज फायर अनाउंस किया कुछ टाइम के लिए, यूक्रेन ने कुछ टाइम के लिए सीज फायर अनाउंस किया, बसेस अरेंज हुई। एंड आज इंडियन स्टूडेंट्स के साथ साथ और भी, बिकॉज ऑफ इंडियन गवर्नमेंट की टीम वाज द ओनली टीम व्हिच वाज ऑन ग्राउंड इन सुमी एंड पुल्टावा टू इंश्योर कि, एंड अपार्ट फ्रॉम रशियन यूक्रेनियंस, कि people caught in the crisis can be brought out of that situation. So you see, सुमी से इंडियन स्टूडेंट्स निकले, वो पुल्तावा है, पुल्तावा से वाया ट्रेन they were taken into Poland, and that is how this evacuation happened. And this would not have happened in any case if it was not for Prime Minister Modi's individual rapport with both the leadership in both the countries, and then of course his proactive measures and proactive follow-ups. So what he was doing during this crisis, Operation Ganga के time पर, he was taking meetings in the morning, he was taking meetings in the evening, and this was also time के देश में इलेक्शन चल रहे थे, मेरे ख्याल से उत्तर प्रदेश के चुनाव चल रहे थे। यूपी इलेक्शंस के टाइम पे ही इज ट्रैवलिंग टू यूपी and thinking about those students, thinking about how to ensure that evacuation happens, and that was going on time and again. Now exactly अब ये चीज करने के लिए Prime Minister Modi put in his best effort, and that is how you see these results happening. Apart from evacuations, of course, new changes happening in how we are documenting and writing. So academia had suffered a lot during the colonial days. In fact, mechanization of our education system had really hampered the growth of our it sort of made Indians or turned Indians into was turning Indians into brown sahib, where we would where not we as in a select or people from the country would look at Indian traditions and in culture with a sort of that um, condescending tone, which was very much the English would do it for the colonialists, for the English. They would want to extract the best out of the country and go out, right? And a way to do it would be to show or to in some way project that India is not or Bharatiya culture is not perhaps as great or as enriching. तो वो consciousness के ना धीरे धीरे डालने का प्रयास किया गया था. And what has happened, and even after 75 or 65 years of Indian independence, हम वो we were taking that baggage on. In fact, I think Professor Kapil Kapoor ने एक इंटरव्यू के अंदर ये बात कही थी कि there were bureaucrats in the 70s and 80s जो चाणक्यपुरी के पास एक मंदिर है वहां पर जाते थे और they will tell the पंडित को ये बोलते थे कि आप टीका लगाइए पर थोड़ा आप हल्का लगाइएगा ताकि मैं उसे वो झाड़ के जूता पहन के ऑफिस चले जाएं. सो हमें हमारी सभ्यता, हमारे कल्चर, हमारे फेथ पर जो वो गर्व महसूस होना चाहिए था वो गर्व मिसिंग था. उसके लिए भी काम करने का जो एक सेंट्रल जो स्ट्रेंथ बनी है, जो कोर बनी है, जो फाउंडेशन बना है, जो पिलर बना है, वो प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरेंद्र मोदी है. बिकॉज ओनली आप ही इज टेकन दिस, ही इज अ पर्सन हु इज नाउ वेयरिंग हिज धर्म ऑनेस्टली. ही हैज नो क्वाल्म्स अबाउट कि अगर द्वारकाधीश में जाकर वो डीप सी डाइविंग करके वहां पर जाना है बेट द्वारका में, या फिर राम मंदिर बनाने की बात है, या अबू धाबी के अंदर मंदिर बनाने की बात है. ही इज डूइंग इट proactively, not just as a leader who comes from a certain faith, but that does not mean that he's disregarding other faiths. That means that he respects every other faith. He respects the dharmic faiths, but he's a Hindu, and he does not shy away from his Hindu identity. And then when from the ramparts of the Red Fort, if he says कि पंच प्राणी की उन्होंने बात की जिसके अंदर he's asked the next generation Indians to work for a Viksit Bharat by 2047. He's asking young Indians, or he's asking Indians to shed that colonial mindset, shed that colonial mentality, and be very proud of our culture, be very proud of our roots, and then work towards building Bharat. And I think that is a long and short of what I want to speak about. कि कैसे 2014 या 24 के अंदर ये बड़ा बदलाव आया है. Of course, in the book I write about many things, including the point that our health system is better than almost every other system in the world. Then, of course, COVID management ke andar, how remarkable job we did, how we integrated digital governance into the vaccination program, and how we were able to achieve it. Uh, then, of course, if our roads are cleaner today, if our highways are so well laid, it is because these are things that we see in 2024 25. हमें ऐसा लगता है कि बड़ी नॉर्मल सी चीजें हैं, but they're not. 2014-12 के अंदर ये सिचुएशन नहीं थी. It was not that our roads were railway stations, petrol pumps, uh, bus stations, the toilets were filthy. वो चेंज कब आना स्टार्ट हुआ, स्वच्छ भारत मिशन का उसमें एक बहुत बड़ा रोल है. एंड आई रिमेम्बर when Prime Minister Modi announced it from the national, from the ramparts of the Red Fort, there were people who passed night remarks that what is the Prime Minister, why is he talking about this? It's not a great thing to talk about, those issues from that bigger stage. But that made an impact. Now, this has to be understood that his objective is not to, quite or be good to somebody. His objective is to make a positive, an incremental change in the country, and that change not necessarily come from infrastructure, but some of it will also have to come from changing the consciousness of people, making people proud about their culture, and working together to build a strong and resilient country. And I think that covers the deep aspect of how India has been transitioning, and what has been the Modi impact. So where is where has this disruption happened while India is in transition, and how Prime Minister Modi plays a central role in this India which is in transition. And of course, ये तो मैंने आपको सिर्फ अभी गवर्नेंस की बात बताई. If one is to look at from political perspective, in 2014, imagine we are a country जो 65 साल इस देश को आजाद होने हुए हो गए थे, and कभी भी there was no there has never been a non-Congress government in full majority. Another thing, पिछले 30 साल से तो सिर्फ कोलिशन पॉलिटिक्स चल रही थी, लगभग 30 साल से कोलिशन पॉलिटिक्स, एंड देन कम्स ऑन अ नेशनल सीन अ पर्सन हु टेक्स, who pulverizes Congress party and ensures that the BJP comes in the center of it. And he's repeated that feat again and again. 2014 में भी रिपीट हुए, 2019 में भी रिपीट हुए, 2024 में भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरेंद्र मोदी इज बैक इन द ऑफिस. सो कितनी रिमार्केबल चीज है. आप हिस्टोरिकली देखेंगे, देयर इज लॉट टू बी सरप्राइज्ड एट, एंड आई द क्रेडिट ऑफ ऑल ऑफ दैट नेसेसरली goes to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the changes that he has brought in the BJP organization, in the politics of the country, and the way governance is practiced, and how he views it and how he has brought change in all these things. So, well, yes, that perhaps brings me to the close of my talk, and I'd like you to, my book would be coming somewhere in coming out in February. To pick it up. I hope you guys will enjoy reading it. Thank you.